Welcome, Math 8. So, today what we have is easy proportions. I call them easy proportions because they're simply easier. We have three kind of types. Two of them are going to be level 2, one of them is level 3, so you don't have to worry about that until we get to it later in the year. But the reason these are easy is because there's not much going on. You can kind of see we have some sort of variable and a bunch of numbers and stuff like that. Okay? So, to remind you what a proportion is, proportion simply means that something is going to be equal to each other. Okay, like 1/2 is proportional to 2/4. Okay, what that means is technically they're the same thing, they just look a little different because the size is a little bit different. Okay, but it's still actually the same. This is used a lot when you're talking about samples and stuff like that, when you have ratios and you need to compare something that's small to something that's a lot larger in size, but really the same value. Okay, so since this is a proportion, this means that this x related to that 4 needs to give you some sort of the same answer as the 2 related to the 7. Okay? Some of these you'll be able to guess. I normally make them so you can't guess because that defeats the purpose of understanding the problem. Okay? Right now, there's not too many people that can look at that x and be like, I know what that's going to be. Because I could have gave you something easy. Don't worry about this, but I could have gave you something like that, where you would see the 4 was just doubled to the 8, and that must be a 2. Okay, but you'll notice these are not that easy. Okay, so what we have to do is something that some people call the butterfly method. If you want to call it the butterfly method, that's perfectly fine. It's technically cross multiplication or taking the cross product, whichever way you want to say. So what that means is we're going to multiply the top of one to the bottom of the other, and top of the other one to the bottom. Okay, so it's kind of like a crisscross. So I'm going to draw these kind of loops, and this is why it's kind of called a butterfly to some people, is because it kind of looks like a butterfly, I guess. Okay, so we're going to multiply out. Now I'm going to write it out for now. You'll see it's actually easier. But we have x times 7, or 7 times x, it's the same thing. Well, we know that is 7x. Then we have our equal sign, and then we have 4 times 2. So I'm just going to write out the 4 times 2. Okay, you'll see why when we get to the medium proportions and the difficult proportions, because if you don't write it out, you're probably going to make a mistake every once in a while. So when we simplify, I still have 7x, and now I have 4 times 2, which just gives me an 8. And then I'll divide both sides by that 7. They will cross out. Now, this is where people are going to make mistakes. This is your answer, 8/7. Okay, don't try to make it more difficult than it actually is. I know people love decimals and they like to convert things to decimals, but I'm telling you, do not do that. Okay, part of the reason is one, you're going to make a mistake. You try to do long division. Okay, if we were to look at this, it'd be 7 going into 8. You get a 1, you multiply, and you do all of this stuff until you finally got to some sort of answer. And I'm pretty sure most of us wouldn't want to keep going, okay? So don't do that. Don't write it as a decimal, okay? That's one reason you'll make a mistake, and it's just kind of not necessarily a waste of time, but kind of is a waste of time, okay? Other reasons is because when plugging something back in, which we'll have to do in later units, fractions will be easier. And when we get to the graphing unit, which is the next unit, fractions are easier, okay? So that's my answer. Problem done. If you try to make it a decimal and you get it wrong, now you're wrong. Don't do that. Okay, pause if you need to. Otherwise, B. Two things that are slightly different. We have a negative, and we have a number in front of our variable. That doesn't change the variable at all. Okay? What I would suggest is always include the negative with the same thing every time. Okay, so I'm going to always include it with my top. So I really have a -4 here. Okay? And then this one's just a positive on the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to write this out. I got 3n times 5 equal to -4 times the 2. Okay, a little bit more math here involved, but still nothing that bad. When I look at it, 3 times 5, so 3n times 5 will give me 15n equals, and then we have -4 times 2, which will give me a -8. Okay, and then again, last step, just like this one, we divide by that 15, can cross out, and that is my answer. N equals -8 over 15. Now, at some point, if you can reduce the fraction, okay? That one, you couldn't reduce the fraction, so it's just left like that, similar to A, okay? And as I hinted at in previous videos, dividing is most likely going to be your last step every single time for these type of problems, just because of how it's set up, okay? So pause the video, try C on your own, and we're going to go over it. So here we go. Okay, again, cross multiplying, like I said in example B, take the negative in the same thing. I always take it with the top. So I have -3 times 3, and I have 2a times the 10. Okay, and then write it out. 2a times 10 equals -3 times 3. Now, one thing you might wonder or ask if you were here is, could the variable be on the right side? Yeah, it's perfectly fine. You'd still get the same answer here. You'd have the -3 times 3 on the left and the 2a times 10 on the right. It'll work out to be the same thing. So on the left, I'm going to get 28. On the right, -9. And then again, you can see these are all very routine. There's a little more steps than the two-step equations, but it's all routine. Okay? Divide by your 20. And again, leave it as a fraction. Okay? Some of the problems in the practice will be reduced, but they don't necessarily all need to be reduced. If it can be, it should be. If not, then don't worry about it. So, pause if you need to grab things. Otherwise, that is it. The next thing is going to be distribution. Until then,